There's a lot going on right now. I think everybody can agree. Unless you're hiding under a rock, you know that the news is moving really fast, especially because of this massive outbreak of, what do you want to call it? Protests? I call it rioting across the United States. And now there's solidarity riots going on in many, many countries over the world. So what I see when I look out here is exactly what a guy called Colonel Custer warned about when he wrote this paper in 2018, Unwriting the Future, Decoding the Next Strategic Shock. And yes, I love that his name is Custer. It just adds, I don't know, a je ne sais quoi. A certain je ne sais quoi is added to this whole thing because the guy's name's Colonel Custer. If you follow Q, you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, that whole thing is flaring up again, the Q thing, because Trump is saying that they are going to designate Antifa, anti-fascist movement, as a terror organization in the United States. And this has huge implications. Anyone supporting them, anyone funding them will be supporting a terrorist organization going forward if in fact that classification is made. And how this ties over to the QAnon or Q movement is because the fake news and the little junior level reporters that they've got working full time covering the QAnon beat claim that QAnon itself was designated by the FBI as a terror organization, which is not true, but it doesn't matter because if the fake news says it, people believe it, right? Okay, I'm digressing. My video today is about a couple of great examples that I think are showing the way these gray zone exploits happen in fourth generation or asymmetric warfare. Okay, to refresh everyone's memory, if you didn't see my original video about this, I want to read a few things. He says that in the gray zone, adversaries are executing strategies for which the defense establishment is not prepared conceptually, doctrinally, or materially. Gray zone competitions allows state and non-state actors to challenge U.S. interests with minimal risk of triggering a U.S. military response. The upward trend in gray zone competition indicates this is where we should be searching for an emergent strategic shock. On this page, Colonel Custer defines fourth generation warfare and what it might look like. Using low-tech means to contest high-tech forces, the desire of adversaries to collapse enemies from within, avoiding military might altogether and attacking enemy society at home, adversary use of democratic state freedoms against that state, direct attacks against a state's culture, a, quote, blurred distinction between war and peace, and reliance on non-national or transnational ideological support. Today, these characteristics are all too clear in the visage of terrorism and those nations exploiting the gray zone. And to me, they are very obvious in what's going on right now with the riots and even the pandemic. So the examples I want to show you today, one is the protests and how they are bringing together sort of an all gray zone approach to using the protests to create chaos. And then from that chaos, who knows where they can push us. And the other example is actually about meatpacking plants and their closures, because interesting things come up when we look at that, okay? So first of all, so this is going to be a bit all over the place because there is an intermingling of elements in these stories that paint a picture of there being an ideologically bonded group who are using each other to attack all at once. It's a many-pronged attack. So let's consider that these riots began in Minneapolis. And one of the things they did on the first day was loot the Minneapolis Target store. And this is all in response, apparently, to this supposed police officer. Nobody even really knows if he's a police officer. leaning on the neck of this man, George Floyd, on the ground until George Floyd died. There's just so much, though, coming out about this story that makes it really suspect. For example, Maya Santamaria, a former club owner in South Minneapolis, says the cop who killed George Floyd worked security for her club up until the end of 2019. She also claims Floyd worked security at her club. Couldn't confirm the two men knew each other. Chauvin was there for 17 years. I think probably the two knew each other, at least knew of each other. So that's weird enough. But then you start looking at this club owner. I mean, she recently sold that club she had owned for all those years. What else does she get up to? Well, in 2015, she announced a new partnership between her radio station called La Raza and the Minnesota Twins. It's very important not only to us, but the entire community, said Maya Santamaria, the station's president and CEO. We, the Latino community, are starting to be embraced and included. It's a community building level of feeling right now, she said. Okay, La Raza means the race, and there happens to be a pretty hardcore group of activists, nationalist activists. They don't have a very good reputation, to be honest. I don't want to slam them unnecessarily, but La Raza is the name of that group. It's like a Mexican Latino group that wants to repossess lands in the U.S., and they're very, very big on bringing in illegal immigrants. I mean, they wouldn't call them illegal. They just want everybody to be legal. And the Twins' involvement is interesting. Their marketing director said of this radio station partnership that it's going to be beyond baseball, beyond the broadcast, such as the possibility of job opportunities and local event promotions, he said. The MSR asked how the new 3-year partnership between the team and Spanish radio is of interest and or importance to the local Black community. It's important as African Americans to celebrate all communities of color, noted Meet Minneapolis CEO Melvin Tennant. Santamaria said she hopes the Twins La Raza partnership will convince other teams to step forward as well. We hope to be able to work with other sports in Minnesota to do something similar. We love football, our basketball, and our hockey. Hopefully it is the beginning of something big. So this radio station partnership between the woman who owned the nightclub where both the cop and George Floyd worked is an activist. She's blatantly an activist, and she wants all communities of color to get in on this, and they'd like to expand it past the broadcast, they said, into jobs and community events. I'm just saying it's a place where activism would flourish, where connections would be built, and the partnership with this Major League Baseball means there's money involved, and the connections and money are just going to grow from there. All right, now add to this. That's one thing going on in Minneapolis that is very strange regarding the George Floyd thing. Now there's also this, though. Now remember, the first place they looted was Target. And then you come to find out that in 2016, Target hired Monica C. Lozano, a board member from Empre Media, a Spanish-language media company. Monica Lozano is also a board member of the Reconquista group called the National Council of La Raza. Okay, this is a Spanish-language media outfit. I don't know if the two are connected. Lozano has been a longtime activist for illegal migrants, and as a member of the media company Impre Media, worked in partnership with Spanish-language cable network Univision. Lozano is also an activist for AIDS, served as a member of President Obama's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness, as well as his Economic Recovery Advisory Board. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, that if you wanted to set up An insurrection in the United States from within, right? An insurrection, an attack on the United States from within. That is precisely the type of network you would need. Media communications, big wig activists getting put into very important positions within and without the administration, ties to, I would call La Raza, bordering on an extremist group. And then, being that this woman was involved in media, would she have had any involvement with this? I mean, the Minnesota Twins, it's not just some club owner. Something else is going on here, right? Okay, so to look more at this Breitbart article, it says Lozano is far from the only liberal on Target's board. Also a member of the board is former Obama Interior Secretary and former liberal Colorado Senator Ken Salazar and former Mexican grocery market chain Casa Le ADS de CV, sorry for that pronunciation, executive Robert L. Edwards. And finally, Target, of course, has long ties to the Democrat Party. Minnesota's Democrat Governor Mark Dayton is part of the Target family. His father, Bruce, was once chairman of the company that rebranded itself as Target in the 1990s. And Target was the first place to get looted. Could it be they're taking one for the team? I mean, CEO of Target, Brian Cornell, doesn't condemn anything. He doesn't rage. He doesn't talk about insurance. He doesn't talk about how the protesters need to calm down. No, he's vague. A lot of corporations during this riot/protest are virtue signaling in favor of the rioters. Here's one from Microsoft saying we can't be silent about this. Logitech, Netflix, to be silent is to be complicit. Spotify, same. Amazon, same. And even Nike, when they got looted this time, they decried George Floyd's killing as rioters loot stores. They don't talk about their business losses. They don't talk about needing to calm down. They don't ask where the police are. They're all about the insurrection. So to me, this is a gray zone exploit. And if you really look at the network that's supporting this, that both brought it on, they're connected to the original murderer and the original victim. They're connected directly. All of it is connected. The stores getting looted are connected, etc. So, all right. And the media, let's not forget the media. The media is being very sympathetic as usual to the leftist rioters. They're going all over the place saying that these are white nationalists. This is completely insane. It's completely insane. But they don't mind lying straight to your face. So this looks like an organized, planned insurrection. And I can see some of the players straight out in the broad daylight, in my opinion. And there's lots more. But I want to go on to the second topic now, which is meatpacking plants. This is pandemic related. This is a separate group. Well, it's the same group, but they're just running a different gray zone exploit. And this is the food supply. Okay, but you'll see as we go along that it intersects with a whole bunch of other areas. And they all benefit. Memphis Meats. This is fake meat. This is what they're calling cell-based meat, where they take a stem cell from a cow and they put it in a gloppy solution and it multiplies, and eventually they have enough to form it into a hamburger shape. It's gross. It's disgusting. It's not meat, but they want to be able to call it meat without telling us that they grew it in a lab. Anyway, I've talked enough about that. Let's not get stuck there. Uma Valetti and Nicholas Genovese founded Memphis Meats in 2015. The company's goal is to feed 10 billion people by 2050 and countless more beyond that. Blah, blah, blah. This is part of UN Agenda 21, 2030, 2050. They want us never to eat animals. I do not agree with factory farming, but if you were the head of a company of factory farms, like the guy from Tyson or the guy from Cargill, what would you do about this cell-based meat thing? In saner days, I would probably just laugh it off because that's disgusting and people won't want it. And who cares if some fringe, tiny number of people want it, right? That's not what they did. For some reason, what they did instead was they invested in it. Tyson and Cargill invested in cell-based meat, along with who? Bill Gates and Richard Branson and SoftBank and other people too. But there's some of your usual suspects right there. And what happens when the COVID hits? Well, all of a sudden, wouldn't you know, there's strange high number of outbreaks of positive tests for it at meatpacking plants. As they rushed to maintain U.S. meat supply, big processors saw plants become COVID-19 hotspots. Worker illnesses spike. Over 30 plants run by these companies? Really? What are the chances? Have we heard of outbreaks at the grocery stores at all? Any other companies? No, just the meat packing plants. What are the chances of this? Well, I say there's a really good chance because meat packing plants combine a lot of the globalist agendas. This article in the Globe and Mail shows you one of them. Meat packing plants operate out of the spotlight, primarily staffed by people born and raised abroad. Many of those who work at the High River plant are temporary foreign workers and immigrants tied to Calgary's Filipino community. This reminds me, once again, of Project Aerodynamic, which I've talked about before, where the bad actors, the deep state, the globalists, they figured out a long time ago that if you put a group of people who are basically, they are vulnerable because they don't speak the language, they don't fit into the culture, they don't have permanent lives in the country they're working in. They can be used for anything. Voting blocks, they don't even understand the language. You can lie to them all day and night about their rights because they can't figure out how to defend themselves. But they've weaponized those communities now. A whole bunch of people have. And so you can see how they might just tell them, hey, we're closing the plant. And they pick one representative guy who gets a big bonus for going out and talking to the news and saying, oh, they didn't give us PPE, so we have to close down the plant. I mean, we don't know what's really going on, but we do know Tyson and Cargill were getting ready for a major disruption to their line of work, weren't they? They're investing in fake meat. They were taking advantage of illegal and legal migrants and temporary foreign workers. This basically is a government handout, by the way, to their companies. And it undercuts the communities that they live in. It throws the people who live there out of work. If a large migrant community moves in, this spikes real estate and rental prices. You see how that single thing works in a lot of gray zone areas? And there's another one it works in too, which is human rights and lawfare. Lawfare is definitely a gray zone exploit. Check this out. All of these petitions sprung up calling for closures at the Tyson plant, at the JBS plant, at the Cargill plant. And P.S. JBS and Cargill in areas of pork, that's the same company now. So really, we're just talking really about a very small group of people owning all these meatpacking plants that suddenly had outbreaks of COVID. And that activists actually started petitions. Close this plant, close that plant, close all the plants. It disrupts the supply chain. Look at all the things that it does. I've already talked about some of them. But really what this is a threat to our society. It's a threat to all the people. It can cause meat shortages. It impacts restaurateurs so they lose their business. It impacts small farmers and medium-sized farmers. We're seeing them have to euthanize their livestock because they can't get it to the meat packing plants. That's what they're telling us, because the meat packing plants are closed. It undermines a whole lot. And it frightens me. Probably one of the most of all the things that's happening right now is the idea of food shortages, because when you learn history, you learn that is one of the go-to control mechanisms. They do it almost every time. if they get far enough ahead in this game. And to me right now, they're very far ahead in this game. Look at what's happening across the U.S. and how can it be stopped? P.S. What has happened to this Memphis Meats stock price? Its seed round funding was $5 million in 2016, and now it's at 186. So I guess the people who invest large amounts of money in these things, who are all the same people we've been talking about, they know what they're doing. They know that they're going to find ways to force people to eat this lab-grown garbage, Franken spew. I'm not going to call it meat. But do be aware that as far as I know, I'm trying to go from memory here, the guy from Tyson Foods, I believe it's him, he is helping the fake meat people with their crusade to be allowed to label their fake meat as real meat, I believe. So which way do you think this thing is going? It's a very dark, obscured industry. These tech foods, and that's what they are. Most of these guys have factories in Silicon Valley. They are calling themselves big tech. So yummy, eat up kids, that cell-based meat, delicious. And Bill Gates will make a lot of money. He's also invested in Beyond Meat, which I do believe is a vegetarian burger, not a fake lab-grown meat thing, but just shows you what direction these guys want to go. All right, I just have one more thing to show you before we go. Just a quick follow-up. Victor Zhao, remember him? On the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, the head of the National Academy of Medicine, also on a whole bunch of other boards that lead to Event 201 and the pandemic, and they make a lot of money from it. Well, there's been an exploration of Victor Zhao's conflicts of interest, and apparently he has many, when it comes to OxyContin, the Sacklers, and a company called Medtronic, and other things. I'll leave a link to that in the description box so you can go see that Victor Zhao seemingly, it looks like, has indeed been trying to hide his conflicts of interest. When he writes up that something is safe to use, when he gives his professional opinion on drugs and medical equipment and this and that, he is possibly being paid. We won't know because it looks like Victor Zhao has a habit of hiding these things until pressed. I'm going to stop talking now. There is so much going on. My head is clogged up. It's also spring, planting season and stuff outside. And I wanted to offer an apology. I have not been very good at answering emails or even keeping track of these things and who sent what. I am getting an overwhelming amount of correspondence, which I love, but I really hope that everybody can understand that I can't. I wish I could answer everybody, and I wish I was better. I'm just not naturally inclined to organizing. I lose track of packages and return addresses and everything. I just want to say a blanket appreciation for everything everyone has sent. And some things really do in particular touch me. And I'm trying to keep them in a separate place so that I can hopefully one day maybe write back. I've said for a while that I wanted to do another thank you video about the mail, but I don't even know where to start. I am just a one-man show here, literally. And the mail, I love it, and I do not want to discourage you, but I also want you to know that if you don't get a reply from me, it is not that I don't want to. I wish I had more hours in a day. I truly do. Because all of you deserve a response, but I'm just not able. And then the idea of picking and choosing some things for a video about it, that also gives me anxiety because I don't want anyone to feel left out. So I know you're all adults, and this was probably an unnecessary speech I just made because you're all adults and you get it. I know. But for my own conscience, I had to say it. I just want you to let you all know that there are so many of you out there. You're so many good, smart people. And I wish there was a way I could connect everybody together to each other. But we are connected in prayer. We're connected in spirit. So just know that. Thank you very much, everybody, for your donations and for just being here and listening and spreading the word. Until next time, everybody. Peace out. Links in description for PayPal, for P.O. Box, and references. Bye.